For skill builder number 3, we're going to be looking at multiplying binomials and factoring. For the first problem here, we're going to multiply the binomial. We could either do the distributive property or a generic rectangle. I'm going to build a generic rectangle, 2x minus 1 times 3x plus 1. We have 3x times 2x, which is 6x squared, 2x times 1, which is 2x, negative 1 times 3x, which is negative 3x, and 1 times a negative 1 is negative 1. We're not going to look at combining our like terms. We have 2x and a negative 3x. So this gives us 6x squared minus 1x minus 1. For number B, I'm going to do a distributive property. X times x, which is x squared, x times y, which is a plus xy, and x times 1, which is just 1x. Then I'm going to multiply negative 1 times x, which is negative 1x. Negative 1 times y, negative y, and negative 1 times 1, which is a negative 1. Now I'm going to look and see if I can combine any like terms. I have a positive 1x and a negative 1x. Those will cancel out, leaving me with x squared plus xy minus y minus 1. And the last one, we have 2y minus 3 quantities squared. So remember, this is the same thing as 2y minus 3 times 2y minus 3. I'm going to do a generic rectangle for this one. 2y minus 3 multiplied by 2y minus 3. 2y times 2y is 4y squared. 2y times a negative 3, negative 6y. Negative 3 times 2y, negative 6y. And negative 3 times negative 3, which is a positive 9. I have negative 6y and negative 6y. I can combine my like terms. This leaves me 4y squared minus 12y plus 9. So again, for when we multiply, we can either do the distributive property or make a generic rectangle. So I'm going to let you try the next 6 on your own. All right, moving down to example 2, looking at our diamond problems from algebra. The top of our diamond problem is the product of x times y, and the bottom of our diamond problem is x plus y. So we're looking for two numbers that we can multiply to get to negative 28 and add that give us 3, positive 3. Well, 7 times 4 is 28, but I need a negative 28. But I want to keep my sum positive, so the smaller number here is going to be negative. So 7 times a negative 4 is negative 28, and the sum 7 plus negative 4 gives me 3. And the second one, I need two numbers that multiply to 10 and have a sum of 7. 5 times 2 is 10, and 5 plus 2 is 7. So using these diamond problems is going to help us when we're looking at factoring. When we factor, what is the first thing we should look for? First thing we're going to look for is the GCF, or the greatest common factor that I can pull out. So looking at letter A, I have 9x cubed y squared minus 6xy to the fifth. And I'm trying to see if there's a greatest common factor. Well, I know that 3 goes into 9, and 3 is divisible by -6, so I can pull out a 3, and here we have x cubed, and here we have x, so I can pull out an x. They both share an x. This is y squared, and this is y to the 5th, so I can pull out a y squared. So now I need to 3xy squared times what gives me my original 9x cubed y squared. Well, 3 times 3 gives me 9. X times x squared gets me back to x cubed, and we already pulled out the entire y squared, so that's as far as I can go there. Minus 3 times what gives me -6, 3 times -2. Well, we already pulled out the x, we pulled out y squared, and I'm left with y to the 3rd. That is as far as we can factor letter A. Letter B. First, looking if there's a greatest common factor. Is there a number we can pull out of x squared plus 4x minus 32? Well, my coefficient in front of the x squared is just 1, so my greatest common factor would be 1, and that doesn't help. So we're going to look at our diamond box method from Algebra 1. And looking at my x squared plus 4x minus 32, my a term, the x squared term, I'm going to put in the bottom left corner. My c term, I'm going to put in the top right corner, minus 32. I'm going to multiply these together to give me the top of my diamond, which would be negative 32x squared. And I'm going to take my b term, or my middle term, and put that in the sum of my diamond problem. So now I need two numbers that multiply to negative 32x squared but add to 4x. Well, 8x times 4x gives me a positive 32, and I need a negative 32, so one of those two needs to be negative, but I want to keep the sum positive, so the 8's going to stay positive, and we'll make the 4 negative. Let's just check that. 8x times negative 4x, negative 32x squared. The sum of 8x and negative 4x is 4x. So I'm going to take these terms and complete my generic rectangle. 8x, negative 4x. Now I'm going to build my area model and my generic rectangle. So what can I pull out of 8x and x squared? X. What can I pull out of x squared and negative 4x? Pull out an x. X times x is x squared. X times what gives me negative 4x? That would just be a negative 4. And I have negative 4 times what gives me negative 32. That would be 8. Let's just double check this works. 8 times x does give me x squared. So I'm going to write my product, the outside of my generic rectangle. X minus 4 times x plus 8. Did I have a greatest common factor? No. So this is my product, or I have factored it completely. Letter C. First question. G, C, F. Is there any number I can pull out of 3x squared plus 21x plus 36? Well, I can factor out a 3, so my greatest common factor will be 3, and then I'm going to rewrite as x squared plus 7x plus 12. So I had my original, and I divided everything by 3. Now I'm going to do a diamond box. Make my generic rectangle, make my diamond in the left corner. corner, I'm going to put x squared, my a term. I'm going to put my c term in the top right corner. You don't have to put them in the bottom lower left and top right, but they do need to be diagonal from each other. So I'm going to multiply them together. That gives me 12x squared. And the bottom of my diamond is going to be the sum, which will be my b term, or in this case 7x. So I need two numbers that multiply that give me 12x squared, but when I add them I get 7x. Well, 4 times 3 is 12. So 4x times 3x is 12x squared. And if I add them together, the sum is in fact 7x. So those will go in the other diagonals, 4x and 3x. Well, now I'm going to build my generic rectangle, and I'm going to pull out 4x and x squared. I can pull out an x. 12 and 3x, they share, or I could factor out a 3. X times what gives me x squared? X times x, which that is good because 3 times x is 3x. X times what gives me 4x? 4. And 4 times 3 is 12. So I'm going to again write my product, x plus 3, the outside of my generic rectangle, times x plus 4. And I'm going to look, did I have a GCF? I did. It was 3. So do not forget to bring that GCF along and multiply it by your product. So now you're going to try problem 7, 8, and 9, 10, 11, and 12. Remember, first thing, look if there's a GCF. If there is, pull it out and rewrite. Then you're going to do your generic rectangle, the diamond box method.